Well, it's a good evening from the pub. It's the name of our vessel as we sail from the Gold Coast to Darwin. So we currently just come out of Port Douglas and we're at a reef called Low Isle. So anyway, we're staying here for the night. But without further ado, we're using our technology these days to be 40 kilometres off the coast and do the show. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Andrena, and we'll go with our guest who's from Australia, by the way.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and welcome to everybody who's tuned in or listening to the replay of Dreaming the New Dream. So today is the 22nd of May, 2025, and it's great pleasure today that we have Francis Baker on the show. So welcome, Francis. It's lovely to see you. Right, you're muted. Bottom corner. Right. Oh God. Right. Well, I don't quite know what's happening. It was happening earlier.
Yeah.
Frances is of the old school where technology comes in, and she's got her husband helping her. So you just have to bear
they're going
with
to mute themselves, and they're going to mute themselves, and they try to unmute, and they bloody log themselves out. Okay, so
it's a good signal, Jeffrey, where you are traveling along.
Yeah. So, well, the thing is that I met Fran and Rick Baker back in 1983, 84. Might even be a little bit longer than that. Anyway, the bottom line is that Rick was into numerology, and they used to go around to various venues around southeast Queensland teaching numerology on this all different formats. And then Fran used to go and do Here She Comes, do her stuff, which was in the personal development.
Am I still muted?
No,
you've unmuted yourself.
Goodness knows what I pressed. And as I said, my apologies. This is all new to me, so it's a new experience. And thank you very much. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to have a chat to you.
Yeah, Jeff was just saying how he met you. So do you want to go and say how you met Francis, Jeffrey?
Yes, that'd be nice.
Yeah, it was about, I just moved myself into the main screen. Yeah, so 84, 85, I suppose it was. I met Rick and Fran. They just arrived from New Zealand for Memory, and they were at a lady's place called Glennis Mackay in Mount Gravatt, I think, for Memory, and they used to come along. And then Rick mentioned that he does numerology, and the rest is history. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Back in the day.
Well, anyway, today, Francis, you're going to share your story of the book that you've written on the Blackboard of My Heart, which you sent me a PDF copy of. And interestingly, in your bio, you said that you started writing it in 2007, and then obviously life happens, and then you started it again in 2016. So I'm on what chapter? I'm on chapter 14 at the moment, and I see you've got 28 chapters and you've got 445 pages. So some questions I would like to ask. Obviously, you've been an inspiration to many. And so let's start at the very beginning. You were born in the UK. Whereabouts were you born in the UK?
Yes, I was born in Lancaster, and that was in 1943. So it was still wartime, towards the end of the war. My father was from Irish heritage, and my mother from English heritage. She was from Lytham St Anne's. And when I was born, I had a sister, Anne, who was 3 years old. And it was an interesting birth in many ways, if you'd like me to share that with you.
Yeah.
What I'm feeling here, because I've had an interesting life, and I used to tell people a lot of the things that had happened, the stories, my family stories, the psychic stories, the miracles, the synchronicity. And people said, well, why don't you write a book? And I went, no, not me. I'm a talker, not a writer. So, I have finally done it. Even though schooling was very difficult for me, I had a dyslexic problem. And so this is really something that I thought I would never do. So I put this down as one of the miracles in my life. But well, when I was born, my mother got blood clots in her legs, and she was dying. And those days, they kept people in hospital for a long time with things like that. And
Not like
my mother
today.
told, sorry?
Not like today, you're in and
No,
out.
not like today, exactly. Dare we go there? But so she was, so where was I? So the blood clots of the legs, and so we were in the hospital for 5 months. But my mother tells me that when she was dying, she went out into a white light, and she heard a voice telling her, you need to go back, or you should go back. You have 2 daughters. So that's when she knew that she had another daughter. And so when I was taken home from the hospital, my mother recovered because of a drug called heparin, which had only been out probably about maybe 10 years prior, maybe less. So it saved her life. And when I was taken home, my father tells me I was so routine that I only woke up on hospital feeding times. So conditioning in our life has a big influence, and I've written a lot about that in my book, about the conditioning, that we go through. Yeah. So,
right, go on. So I know you were you left for Australia, didn't you? Or when was that?
we left for New Zealand. We left for New Zealand in 1948. I was 4 years old, and we sold our home, and we had to go and live with my godparents, my auntie Teresa and my uncle Jock. And it was a big old house, and it had a beautiful garden, had a big fence around it, and we had to go and live there for 6 months. Anyway, when we arrived, we were having afternoon tea in the lounge room, and I needed to go to the toilet. And so those days, children sat quietly on a seat while the adults were having their cup of tea, and you had to ask to leave the room. So I asked if I could leave and go to the toilet. And so I walked out of the room, and there was a stairway. And as I was walking past the stairway, as I looked up, there was a young girl in a very old-fashioned cream-coloured dress. Well, I got a big fright, and I looked away, and I looked back again, and she was gone. So I was pretty frightened. So I went to the toilet, and of course, on the way back, I shot past the stairway. There's no way I was looking back up there, back into the lounge, and I felt much safer with my family there. And that was my first psychic experience. And so that was before. So then we went, when we left to come to New Zealand, we had to go to London. And I remember seeing the changing of the guards, this little girl I was looking through and looking at the changing of the guards and the palace, and thinking about the princesses, Elizabeth and Margaret, in there. And yeah, it was all quite exciting. And we left from Southampton on in March it was. We left, and we flew on a solvent flying boat. And those days it cost my parents £1,000, which is a lot of money those days. And we we had a cabin. I remember sitting opposite my parents, and there was a table in front of us, and we flew with, there was 35 passengers on board, and my sister and I were the only children, and it was all very exciting. And the trip was supposed to take 11 days, and we stopped in different countries, and I've got a pretty good memory. We landed on the river inlets and the bays, and then a launch came and got us and took us, and we stayed in all the first class hotels, and I have great memories of that. And but when we flew out of Karachi in South Pakistan, one of the engines broke down, and the pilot's name was Mr. Deadman, would you believe? And he decided that he wasn't going to go on. He would turn around and head back to Karachi because he had children on board, and also made a joke about his name being Mr. Deadman. So that was an interesting thing, I thought. So another plane was flown out by British Airways, Overseas British Airways, BOAC, and our pilot's name was Captain White, and we left Karachi and flew over the equator on the 16th of March 1948. And then I remember Singapore because we stayed in Raffles Hotel, and it was just so posh, I thought, so luxurious. And I remember the doormen, they looked brilliant in their costumes, and they were so nice to myself and my sister, making sure we had water to drink and were we all right. And I felt like a princess, in this place. It was fantastic. But then we finally arrived in New Zealand and landed on Auckland Harbour, and the whole trip had taken 14 days.
Wow.
Yeah, and so from there, because my parents thought that they could get a train straight to Hastings, where my mother's aunt lived, we were going to her place first, there was going to be no train till the Monday morning. So we had to get a hotel in Auckland and leave on the Monday morning and take a train trip to Hastings. And I remember buying the pillows so we could have a sleep, and stopping at stations and having food. And I can remember my sister and I, we were quite in hysterics actually, trying to say names like Tia Mutu and all those sort of New Zealand names were very strange to us, and it was quite funny really. And so when we finally arrived at our auntie's, of course, she was a beautiful lady. I've written a story about her in the book. She was in New Zealand. I think she went in 1912, and there's a big story around her and around Hastings earthquake and things like that. And she was a beautiful lady. She'd been a confectionery cook prior to her journey. On her journey on the ship, she was a governess to 2 children. But so we had beautiful food. And of course, going from the wartime in England, where there was food rationed, and here we were in this beautiful country, and I've called the chapter in my book, that's what I've actually called it, A Beautiful Country. And Hastings, it was beautiful, with the well-known for the blossom festivals and the blossom trees, and I just loved it. It was like a whole new world to me. Yeah. So we weren't there for too long. There's a book. So yes, that's my book. Yes, the reason for the name on the blackboard of my heart is because this life to me and to us all, I guess, is like a school of learning. Our souls chose to come here and learn. And that's one of the reasons. And there is another reason that I've written in the book about a dear friend that died very young that used to sing that song all the time. So when I was writing the book, somebody said to me, "What are you going to call the book, Fran?" I said, "I have no idea." And she said, "Well, look, it'll come to you." And I was sitting on the couch one day and I thought about my friend. I'd often thought about her and thought about the song she used to sing all the time. And it just felt right. Never changed it from that point on. That was the name. Yeah, so, yeah.
Right. So
what else would I want to say?
Yeah, because you said you started writing in 2007, so obviously that's further down the track, isn't it? So reading your book, like you've shared so many wonderful memories, and like, there's some of the things I can recall, like when I was young, like about having the milk outside and the milk bottles and the cream and all of that, just a couple. Yeah, so obviously you had a Catholic upbringing as well.
Yes,
and there was a couple
there
was a couple of things in there that I'd like to ask you about. But if you want to go back to your writing and how it started, and then I'll chip in.
Right. Well, going forward many, many years, as I said, I used to talk to people about, the things that had happened to me, and they'd say, write a book. And I thought, no, not for me. I don't think I can do that. But anyway, one lady said to me, Fran, you might forget some of these stories. Why don't you write them down? And I thought, I've got a pretty good memory. I think but anyway, I took it on board, and I usually would have written things all neatly, but as soon as I'd think about something, I'd scribble it on a bit of paper and throw it in a box. And anyway, after doing the journey, I'm a journey practitioner with Brandon Bass, who endorsed my book. It's all about cellular healing, which I can talk about later. But after doing the seminars that and becoming a journey practitioner, at one of the seminars, I just felt really strongly when I came home, and I just started writing the book. I didn't know where I was going with it. I just thought, right, I'm going to have a go at this. And so I started it. And but why I didn't go back to it in 2006 was because I lost 100 computer pages of it. And I don't know how I did it. I took it to a top guru person. He couldn't find it. And I really let it go for quite a long time. I knew I'd come back to it, but a lot was going on, and I let it go. And I realised, it's very interesting in life, I think, because things happen, and they do have. Came back to writing, I sort of went a different way about it. I think prior I was trying to put too much into it, and when I came back to it, it was flowing much better. So I came back to it. That was 2016, and I'd just come back from a seminar with Brandon Bays, an amazing woman. I can't say enough about the journey and the healing. It's just absolutely something else. And certainly for me, it was what triggered me being able, I believe, to be able to write this book. And so I started writing again, and plodded along here and there. We did a lot of travel at that time. And then at the beginning of 2020, it just became very clear to me to finish the book. And of course, because I was home a lot, because of reasons of the world, yeah, I finished the book.
Yeah, because
so it was pretty.
Yeah, reading it through, I think, God, you've got an incredible memory, because, you've gone like from the early years all the way through, talking about your family, your husband and children and all the people you met. So I thought, wow, what, a fantastic memory to capture all of that in your book.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because, like I talked to my husband Rick about it, and he said, I can't remember as far back as you can. So I don't know. And even my sister, well, I guess she possibly remembers something. See, this is we're all individual, aren't we? Because she remembers her world her way, and I remember my world my way, and we gelled with some things, but some things we don't at all. It's sort of quite interesting, really, how I think even children. I know my own children, the four of them have got a different concept, I think, on the way they were brought up, how that affected them. So, yeah, we're all affected differently, aren't we?
Yeah. And I know, like, for my sister, she says things, and I say, well, I don't recall that. And then I think, well, where was I? I can't recall half of the stuff in my childhood. Was I in my body? Because
you may not have been grounded. You may not have been grounded. I mean, as far as the spiritual things, we come through with amnesia, and this is why schooling was a trauma to me. I was hearing religious things about how good God is, and then fear the Lord thy God, and I was always obviously a thinker, because I was going, what's going on here? This doesn't sound right. And things like, oh, only Catholics are going to go to heaven. Well, excuse me, what's going to happen to all the lovely people I know that aren't Catholics? It was complete sort of confusion, and the fear and the dogma and the guilt really had an impact on me for a long time in my life.
And that still goes on today, doesn't it?
I believe it does. I was quite surprised. I thought people would be over and done with it, by now. And when I was had my centre of light at Tambourine, and a lot of people came through, and I remember, that people that I'd worked with, it wasn't only the Catholic religion, it was the other religions.
Yeah, but I know what struck me in your book was about when you talked about babies in limbo, and if they hadn't been christened, obviously they're in limbo in the Catholics' way of term. I mean, is that still the case? Do people believe that they're babies, if you don't get them christened, they're in limbo?
Well, I wouldn't know, because I moved totally away from a belief to more of a heart spiritual knowing, the heart intelligence. The religion is a belief. Spirituality is from your heart. Your monkey mind, can take over, but your heart intelligence is a totally different thing. You're connected when you go within, and that you connect more to your soul energy. When you're just so focused on the material world, you can be quite lost in that material world. You're disconnected from the soul essence, and the more you internalize, the more soul energy that comes through. Yeah. So
because I thought,
maybe they do, but I know. Sorry.
Go on. Sorry. Yeah, no, I was just thinking, how horrendous is that for people that if their babies died suddenly or anything like that, and they've got that fear that they've not gone to heaven,
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not nice, and it bothered me, and I used to pray for babies that had to go to limbo, and I think it comes back to even in churches where they've changed things now. I think, well, what happens to all those poor souls that think they've committed a sin in the past? Hopefully when we pass over, it all clears away, I believe, and you see it clearly, thank goodness, not this illusion that's going on here, So, pretty traumatic for mothers, who've lost their babies and they haven't lived and haven't been christened. I mean, it's pretty harsh, isn't it? in today's reality.
Yeah, I really found that unbelievable. But anyway, all these different religions have got different ways of doing things, which is not in alignment with some of us, and it is with others, but we're all on a journey, and it's different for each and every one.
Absolutely, that's what I say. I mean, I went through the religious upbringing because my soul chose to go into that family. And, my parents were both psychic, and I've written in the book they both had quite clear psychic experiences, but yet there was still the Catholic thing going on. But even in their lifetime, they dropped away a lot from that conditioning, which was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the truth is slowly
my
coming
father
out.
used to come to the centre. Yes, well, this is a time of light, and the time that we're moving into a different dimension, and it's all sort of been predicted, hasn't it? The world is changing as we know it, and things like that. It's just, I think, a lot of fear. There's a lot of people at the moment, with a lot of fear, and for them it must be very difficult to be looking at the world. But I like to say things, affirmations like, we welcome in the expansion of consciousness of love. And I like to say things like that. I like to focus on new earth. I like to, I believe for a long time, my stepdaughter bought me a little plaque I've got outside on my wall, and it says, live life like it's heaven on earth. And that's what I try to do. I'm not blind to what's going on or things like that. I don't watch the news, of course.
No, no.
I let go of the news a long, long time ago. But you still hear the things that you hear, with the phone and people tell you. And it's your choice. It's always our choice to how, when you're soul connected, you're not going to buy into that.
No.
Because you're creating your reality through what you're thinking. Your thoughts, your whole frequency, your vibration is syncing that. And I got messages, I don't know if you've read it in the book, but I got messages back in the 80s, and I had to take my son and his friend who was living with us at the time to the station. They were young teenagers. They were going into the city. So I was dropping them off at the station, and on the way home, I felt a sense of, I had to go down a road. It was like a pulling, an energy telling me just to go down a road. And it was quite a dark road. There weren't many houses on it. There wasn't much lighting or anything like that. And then I saw some lights, and I pulled the car over by the side of the road. And these lights sort of came over me, and I thought, oh, it's a small plane. And I couldn't hear any noise. And then I got this mental telepathy message, and the message was about the need for humanity to lift their frequency, because because there was going to be changes, and it was important for our vibrations to be working on a good frequency, a love frequency, and looking after ourselves and looking after your body and quietening your mind, all those things that can help you to connect with your soul. And this message came through very, very clearly. Anyway, it was there, it disappeared. I couldn't hear any noise, couldn't see the lights anymore, and I drove home. And I only told two people at the time, and one was my friend Sarah and my husband Rick. And on the following weekend, there'd been a report on the radio about some people seeing UFO activity on Mount Cootha in Brisbane. So, you know, I haven't told many people this. And I'm getting very good feedback on my book from people that have bought it. And it's funny because nobody's mentioned it. So I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. People do know. I mean, I talk to my great-grandchildren and, you know, they know there's more in this universe. They know. You know, I might say something, they go, oh, of course. They call me Gigi Ma, great-great-grandma. And they go, of course, Gigi Ma, we know that. So they sort of haven't come through with this amnesia of not knowing, have they? They know that there's more going on in our universe and we're connected to far more energies and things that are happening than just this, you know. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. So...
What else would you like to share? Because I know, when did you go to Australia from New Zealand?
Yes, well, I met Rick. I became a solo mum, you know, after trauma. My marriage wasn't good, alcohol and things like that. I've written all about that, and it came to the point where I was, yes, I was on my own for a while, and then finally I met my soulmate, Rick. And he never pushed me into it, but we just felt that we may be better. He felt do better over in Australia financially because there was his son and my four when we came, and my daughter's boyfriend came with us at the time. But that was in 1981, and yeah, so it was a good move. I had a lot of very dear friends that I had to leave, and my family, of course, and I was a bit homesick at first, to be honest. And once Rick was working and my daughter was working and the boys were all at school, I was really feeling homesick, you know. And I remember going to bed one night and I said, oh, dear God, please send me a friend. And I had a dream, and in the dream, someone was standing behind me, and I was buying a raffle ticket, and that was all the dream was. So anyway, the next morning, my eldest son, John, he had also been very homesick, and wasn't settling into high school very well at all, and he wanted to stay home. And something that he wouldn't normally do, or I wouldn't let him, whatever, but I let him because I wanted some company. So later in the day, I decided I'd go over to a different shopping centre. And of course, driving here initially, the traffic was a lot faster than in New Zealand. And so I was a little bit nervous about that. But because John was with me, I said, we'll go to another shopping centre. And I walked in the door, and there was a lady with blonde hair, and there was a car, and she was selling raffle tickets. And I thought, I wonder if that meant I'm going to win a car. Anyway, I went over and bought a ticket. We weren't spending a lot of money on other things at the time, trying to get into a house, but they were only like $2 or something, I think it was. And as I'm writing out the ticket, my son's standing behind me, like in the dream. And she then says to me, oh, are you from New Zealand? And I thought, oh, how does she know that? But I had a little T-shirt on that my sister had bought me, and it had a little bowl of fruit and had Fruit of the Loom on it, which she knew was a New Zealand T-shirt because she was a New Zealander. And so we got talking. And so I told her, how long I'd been over here, and she'd been 2 years at the Gold Coast and just bought a house up this way, and she was just doing that job till she got another job. a better job. And it turned out that she lived in the next street over from where I was renting. And it turned out that she was a beautiful lady, and we became very good friends. So I was pretty happy. God answered my plea straight away the next day that I had won a beautiful friend. And that's amazing. I always think that's another miracle, and just the miracles, just things like that have happened to me. There's so many things like that of course you can't put everything in the book, but I have put a lot, as many stories as I can, like that type of thing.
Yeah. Did you think your book, because like it was going to be 445 pages? Did you think it was going to be as big as that?
No. No, but then I am heading up in age. I am heading up in age, so yeah. So excuse me.
So what's your age?
Well, that's talking. No, I didn't. I have put some photos in the book.
Yeah, no, I've seen them.
And things like that for people. Yeah, and when I went to the Glenys Mackay's that Jeffrey was talking about before, her meditation group, I was just blown away, because how that came about was that my neighbour Val over the road from England became very good friends, and she knew I used to sort of muck around a bit with reading, and she got me to read her teacup. So anyway, one day she came over. She saw, I'm going to see a real clairvoyant, and I said, "Oh, that's great, good." She said, "I'll let you know how it goes on." So when she came back, she came over to tell me that the clairvoyant had said to her, the lady doing this work, to go and see her, and I think it was called Glenys, and had a reading. And while I was there, I realised she was running a meditation group, and I asked her, could I come, please, and could I join your meditation group? And when she said yes, I was over the moon. And I much to get to that group. No, that was not, and it was lovely. And I met Sarah there, and I'd been going a few weeks, and then I said to Sarah, because every time I looked at her, I could see a spirit behind her, a very tall, dark man. And when I told her, she just acknowledged it like that. And then she said, well, every time I look at you, I can see a building. And I said, well, what sort of building? So she just, because Rick was looking for a work building, government money to build a factory. And it was nothing like that at all. And so I said, oh, okay. That's interesting. I thought about it. My brother had mentioned to me in a reading, because he was very psychic too. He didn't do this work. He was a computer programmer, which I could do with him around. Sadly, he passed over when he was 43. But so he had told me about a building. So I rang him and I said, look, would you be able to do me a sketch of that building? He said, sure. He said, I'm pretty busy at the moment, but I'll do a little sketch of it. So that's fine, just anything when you get a chance. Anyway, the sketch arrived, and it was exactly how Sarah had described it. I've got a picture of it here. It was smaller than this. This is something I took. Can you see that? Can you see that?
Yeah, go back just a little bit. Oh yeah, looks very space age.
Yeah, well, that was in the 80s. It looks a bit that way, doesn't it? And yeah, so that's something that I believe in the future. I'm hoping that it would be a centre of real healing, real learning, real light. So it would be the centre of light. And I opened a centre at home after my brother died. I had a big area downstairs at Tambourine, and I call that the centre of light. And a lot of work happened from there. And it was really good, and even to the point that a few people were interested, and we got together, but things didn't turn out quite that way. And but it opened up doors to another area called the Australian Life Skills, and through Australian Life Skills, there's lots of stepping stones, aren't there, to things. They don't always go the way you think, but because of Australian Life Skills, I ended up running 12-week courses at Kingston Education College called New Horizons, and the government were paying me. I wasn't sure that just comes about, because Rick was doing work up there, and the principal up there was a very forward woman, looking, very open-minded, forward-thinking woman, and she wanted the girls to look nice for their graduation, and she'd met me, and she asked Rick if I would teach them how to put their makeup on, because she liked how I did mine. And I said, sure. And I went in and I set the whole thing up really nice, like a proper presentation and everything. And she came out, she was very impressed. And after it was all over, she said to me, is there anything else you could do here for a 12-week course? Well, I was in on it straight away, oh, sure I can, positive thinking, creativity, all the positive things. And so, yeah, she gave me that opportunity. And it was really good. I loved it. And the thing is, it's a two-way street. I've just learned so much from everybody that's come into my life, and I'm so grateful because I've met such beautiful people, and they've taught me so much, so it's been amazing.
Yes. So are you still running anything now?
Pardon, love?
Are you running anything now? Any groups or?
Not at the moment. People come sometimes for healing. For the healing, because after I did a lot of work around Brisbane, in the day, and Jeffrey will remember all this. It was quite buzzing, wasn't it, when everything came out of the woodwork, because Sarah did the psychic news, the first psychic news, and that's a copy of the very first one, and that's my son on the front, and that's the very first psychic news. And back in the day, there was still a law in place in Australia that it was, a crime to sort of do fortune telling. And so people were hidden, in tea rooms, and it was all right, I think, in the spiritual church to do it. But so, people were hidden. So the psychic news came out. Sarah's very confident with editing it, did a terrific amount of work. I did my best to help her. She was a real mentor to me, because she had been to the psychic centre in London, where they do studies there, and she knew a lot more than me. So she was quite a mentor to me at that time. But I would go with her to this different meditation groups, and our business would pay for the paper till the advertising took over, and it was a very interesting time, at that time, meeting new people, finding out new things, and certainly what it did was bring a lot of people out of the woodwork, because people started advertising. And it was like, and of course then we went from that, when Sarah let go of the psychic news and Arthur Remford took it over as the Silver Cord. We put on a big thing in the big venue in the town hall called Beyond the Physical. Do you remember that, Jeff? Beyond the Physical? No, it's all right. So
go on.
you might. Anyway, yeah, I can't hear, love. That's all right. So anyway, Arthur helped by advertising it, and we actually got over 700 people there. And wow. It was, that was yes, and it was, we donated the money to the Children's Hospital, and I was the last speaker, and we probably had too many speakers. And it was my first time of ever speaking in front of 700 people, and it was a bit disconcerting, because behind me on the stage, all the others that had done their thing were laughing and carrying on, and people were getting up out of the audience and leaving. And I thought, what's happening, So, and I actually cut my talk. I found out later they were having to leave, or they'd got stuck in their parking places and wouldn't have got out. So that's why they were leaving. But anyway, all in all, it all went all right. So, that was another total experience again. Doing things that you never imagine you'll do. And I know when I was first came to Australia, I got a job at a factory for a while, for a couple of years, because, to help out, to get ahead. And, we bought a house and everything. And I can remember this factory, they make doorknobs, and it was noisy, dirty, boring work. And I remembered, doing the work, and I'd often be thinking, oh, I really wish I could help people. And then rather than doing this sort of thing. And then of course, I didn't have anything that I felt that I knew I could help them with. And anyway, I ended up leaving there, and we were in business, and I worked in the office doing the wages and things like that. But, eventually when I remember setting up downstairs in the Centre of Light to run, I was doing a numerology seminar, and I had about 35 people coming, and I remember when I was setting up the night before that daydreaming was doing helps you to be focused. It helps you to become aware of what you're thinking, so you can go, oh, delete that. And because at the centre, another situation around the power of the mind was, I'd been very not well, and I was getting her to doctors and things, and I had a lot going on at that time, and I was saying I need a break. And I went downstairs the morning of meditation, and I was putting the urn on ready, flat shoes and everything, went over on my foot and broke my 5th metatarsal. Well, it really wasn't the break that I was looking for, but I got a break. I got a break. So very, very aware. I'm very, very aware of the power of our mind and what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what your vibration is. Because one of my daughter-in-laws had read a book all on manifestation that was all popular at the time, and she was all suddenly going to manifest everything, which was wonderful. And then when it didn't happen, she's saying, oh, I don't know why this is happening. Well, it's good. It made some shifts, but if you really, every cell in your body has a memory. You know, it's not just your mind, your whole body is a memory. So your whole frequency is going out on that, you know. And that's why the cellular healing with Brandon Bayes is so powerful, you know, because your cells in your body, why do people keep getting sick over and over? Because, you know, the memory of the, because every 6 months you're a whole, you know, you're rejuvenating, regenerating. A whole year you're a whole new person. So why are you sick? Because that memory is being sent to that cell again, and when you break that cycle, you know, you can heal. People have healed through breaking that cycle, which is amazing.
Yeah, the power of your words.
Okay, so let's come back to the book itself. So you've written your book, and then you obviously become a self-publisher. We've had a number of authors come and explain the circumstances to self-publishing. So
no,
choose...
I got a publisher.
All right. And so from that perspective, you just gave them the go-ahead to go and look for different avenues for promotion and actually put it on the shelves, whether it's, you know, a bookstore or through online. What was the procedure there? How did you go with that?
Right. Well, actually, unfortunately, the publisher that I went to has caused a lot of people a lot of problems. I can't really go into this too much, but a lot of people have lost a lot of money. So I feel very fortunate that I have my books. So myself and Rick, we're doing our own promotion. I've sold quite a few books already because a lot of people know me. And of course, they've been waiting for my book. And I've gone to some shops, and they're going into some alternative type shops, and it's on Amazon, and we're still in the process of that. So there's still more work to do with regard to the book, to the selling of the book.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've written a book on poems a long time ago, and I thought, right, it'd be lovely to have them in a book form. So anyway, I went to the printers, sent it them and what have you, and they gave me a rough copy and what have you. And then, so he told me for 10 books, it would cost me £147. I went, what? I said, right, I'll have to forget that, because that's, you know, that means each book would be about £17. Well, that's just not the case. So it's in the right avenue.
Yes, that's true. Well, I had paid out for this, and I'm happy to do that. And fortunately, I had the money to do it, and I'm very grateful for that. And you know, so they sell it. For me, this has been a real soul heart thing. I have really written this book from my heart.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel it's come across by the feedback that I've got. But my husband, Rick, actually would be the one to talk to, because he's written a little book, and he wanted to learn, because of what happened to people with this publisher we originally had. He's written a little book, and he's gone through the whole process, cover everything, and just to know what to do. So if there's any more books from our home, we'll be doing it ourselves.
Oh, maybe I'll have a chat with Rick later.
Yes.
Yeah, because when you start going through a bookshop, you know, you'll see, and like the library, you're just looking at the spine, and you just basically, you know, you only got less than a second as you go through the books and reading the spines to those that have actually been open faced, and then you don't realize that the cover, the color, the words, the way the words been written, it's all part of that psychological impact that's got to hit the actual potential reader, isn't it? You know?
It is, and I designed my own. Of course, it had to be done, you know, how it had to be done with the proper people doing it. But that I chose that design, and I chose my colour. Of course, we got bought a copy through from Amazon, and the colour's a little bit different and the little bit of writing at the top, the white isn't quite as clear as on the books that I, like this book that I have here, you know. Yeah. But yeah, I have had some good comments on my cover, which is nice. And I've had one bad comment, which is nice. I took it on board. One lady who'd written a few smaller books said to me, "Oh, I don't like the name of your book." And I said, "Oh, that's all right." She said, "Well, it's not the right sort of name for a spiritual book." I said, "That's fine, thank you."
Yeah.
But most people have said, "Oh, really, really do love the cover. It really grabs you." So yeah, definitely, that's important. Yeah.
So where are you now with
Right.
everything? Have you got any more plans, any more books? So what's your next step, if you like?
I did have a thought of putting a smaller book together, just maybe not such as a story like that, because the idea with this book also was to tell my story and not sort of be saying to people, well, it's best if you do this or you do that or you do the other thing, you know, telling you what to do or anything like that. I just wanted to write my story, and maybe somebody may get something out of the fact how I dealt with these things in my life, you know. But now I have had the thought of, maybe another book and more in that context of, different things that you're just kind of spelling it out more clearly, you know. So how to let go of conditioning, sort of thing, how you can heal how you can quieten your mind. I know when I was running meditation groups and the New Horizons course, I had some young women there with babies and young children. And they said, well, we haven't got time to stop meditating every day. I said, no, you haven't. So what you do when you're driving a car, you just center, you get in the now, you're driving a car. If you're in the garden, you're in the garden. If you're waiting in a queue to get some shopping, you just wait there silently. That's all meditation. If you're in the shower, just become aware of the water, the feel on your skin, the smell of the flower gel. I said, what will happen straight away? Your mind will start going, oh, I need to get that for tea or whatever. So don't try and push it away. You can't stop your mind. Don't push it away. Just let it flow through, and then just keep coming back to the now, And that seemed to be very helpful to a lot of them, to think, well, because they were thinking, I don't believe that you have to be sitting in meditation for hours.
No.
And certainly once you really start to wake up, your life becomes a meditation because you're living in the now.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean to say that things don't happen to you in life. They do. But the difference is when you're connected to your soul essence, and you're working on a better frequency, like the higher mind, active intelligence, love, wisdom, a part of the soul essence, when you're working on that, well, then you're able to be, in that now energy. Your whole life is centered in that. Yeah. It's only when the mind, they call it the monkey mind, don't they? The monkey mind. And the soul stuff gets you into the heart intelligence, which has got far higher frequency. And I believe this is what the messages I was getting, lift our frequency, We're all part of each other. The whole universe, we're all connected. We're all one, And so if we can't go out there and physically do something, you're just doing it by having a high vibration or good vibration and vibrating. You are adding to the collective consciousness of humanity.
Yeah,
and
totally.
that's a beautiful thing to just be able to do so easily, isn't it? And as I say, things happen in your lives, but I feel you just deal with them in a different way. I mean, I've had a little thing go wrong lately, and with my shoulder, and somebody rang me up the other day and they go, they didn't know, how are you, Fran? I said, well, I'm fine, but the body is doing something at the moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not, you're still okay. You're able to let go of things easier. Your life flows different. You have more synchronicity. I think what surprised me in my life is the absolute synchronicity, because when I started doing this work, when I woke up and ended up in a situation doing a psychic fear and didn't know I'd done readings for another minister of a spiritual church, they asked me to go and work at theirs, and then I did read for 2 other ministers that I had no idea, and they asked me. So I've always felt, for me, and I'm sure it happens for people, it's been like signposts have been there. I never went running around looking for this. I never felt that I had to go looking, what do I have to do? It always came to me, and even came to me in a difficult way once, because going to the journey was over an emotional situation.
Mm.
And so, in the long run, that situation was a silver lining. It took me to the journey and becoming a journey practitioner. Yeah.
Yes.
Life. Yeah. Life, I think if you seek, I think if you're seeking, if you are and you ask, put out a prayer. And when I asked for that friend, I just went, dear God, please send me a friend. I mean, I was really asking, and the miracles happen. Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being our guest this week. It's been an absolute delight, and you sharing all your stories. I'm halfway through the book, so I should be in touch when I finish the book, but I'm really enjoying reading the book. So thank you, and it's been an absolute delight. And I do know Glenys St. George because I sat in Circle when I came over, 2009 with Jeff, and Sarah. So yeah, I know exactly where you are and what you're talking about. So it's nice memories. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel very blessed to be on this show. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff.
Very good.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank
good.
you, everybody that's tuned in this week. And same time, same place next week. Thank you.